90.3 Mainland FM. Easy listening wherever, whenever.
This is Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.
Good morning and welcome to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM. Today is Friday. Thank God it's Friday, the 4th of August, 2023. Time check is 7:41 a.m. It's time for us to look through the papers and talk the major trending stories across the front pages of these papers. I won't be doing this alone. My name is Mobola Sandra. Fuhad Saheed will be joining in via the phone line to give in-depth analysis to every one of the stories that we're going to be looking through this morning. We're live on Facebook and YouTube, so do well to please join us and drop your comments or contribution in the live chat section as the program goes on. We're doing this up until 8:30, and then by 8:40 we move on to Mainland Focus, and that's the part where we pick one or two major trending stories from the papers, and then we flesh things out, open up the phone line for you to be a part of the conversation. How excited are you about the weekend? I don't know if people are still, chilling and hanging out. I don't know if people are still doing that. I don't know if the fuel or the price of petrol or the price of transport is allowing people to be outside. I don't know, but just try to find your own fun wherever it is that you find yourself. In your house, even in your house. You can just, probably Netflix and chill, have some ice cream in your house, or just get some cold drinks or make some fruit juice. Whatever it is, just try to be happy. Make yourself happy. Find happiness. Find that joy within yourself. And, let it exude to other people around you. That is the way forward at this time now in this very great country of ours. We're not giving up. We have to just keep striving for a better future. All right, let's look through the major trending stories. This is Trends in the Papers. Good morning, Fuhad. Thank you for joining in.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. And thank God it's Friday.
Yes. I'm happy. Are you happy, Fuhad? Are you going anywhere this
Why
week?
not?
Should I take you out?
Of course, I would take that with so much happiness, Any opportunity to unwind
With which money?
will be well accepted.
Where is the money?
What do you say?
With which money? With which fuel?
I'm just looking to you advising people to make themselves happy wherever and anywhere they find themselves. So,
Yes.
So I will take the advice too. So let's find a way to unwind and make ourselves happy.
Exactly. That's the spirit. All right, let's start with the Guardian newspaper this morning. The major headline there says Nigeria's political dynasties wax stronger as poverty deepens. We have political dynasties of what?
What's a massive headline?
It's very interesting.
The editors in Guardian are doing wonders.
It's amazing. I love it. Nigeria's political dynasties are waxing stronger as the poor people, as poverty deepens. It's the irony for me. But then let's see what we have here. Which generation wields the most power and influence? Well, that's a lot of conversation. But let's deal with the big story here. It's on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper. What are the political dynasties, and what exactly is causing either the stronger or the deepening of poverty? The increasing number of old politicians maneuvering the system to get their biological sons and daughters to either occupy elective offices or secure political appointments in turning Nigeria's democracy gradually towards oligarchy. Fuad, remember last week or so, we had a conversation of the fact that a lot of politicians, their sons and daughters are heading committees in the National Assembly.
Quite exactly. Yes. El Rufai has a son in the National Assembly. I think Olusegun Oshova has a son. A number of these guys, some are already...
Akala.
Akala, the late Alawa Akala. A number of them already have their sons and daughters. I think Ibori's daughter is also in the assembly.
Ibori, yes, that's true.
So I think what they are simply doing is to pass the baton to their ears, and children to also take over from where they have stopped. Even though they are still active, what they are doing is to do an early handover to their children and offspring.
Early handover.
It's early handover now.
Is he a
most
family?
most of these guys are very
title?
young.
I don't understand.
No, it's early handover. For example, El Rufai's son, I don't think he has any experience as far as the banking is
At all, and he's
As
heading a committee.
a committee on banking, the House of Reps there, so for me, it's early handover, and I think Nigerians are not paying attention. These guys have solidified their base. They are handing over to their children. They are bringing them in gradually. It's becoming, like the Guardian rightly put it, it's becoming like a political dynasty. I call it a political empire. We are building a new empire, and of course, integrating their children into that empire. But you know what, Sandra?
Yes.
Sandra, it will fail. The empire will fall one day. Just believe me.
Why do you say so?
There are records of people who have tried in the past to build such an empire. It may not even be Nigeria. We have records of, the political class who have done something like this. And it would always fail. It will always fall. Because the reality is that one day the people will rise up against the shenanigans we are seeing in the political class.
Are we going to use the Saraki family in Kwara State as an example?
That's an empire that eventually fell, even though the people will still tell you you wield some level of influence in Kwara State. But I think to a great extent it's been demystified. But the reality is that it's still part of the old order. It's still well, entrenched in the political space as far as Nigeria is concerned. But I'm not even talking about what happened to Saraki. I'm talking about generally the fact that one day the people will, ask questions about what these guys have done with their wealth, with their resources, with governance in the last 4 or 5 decades. And at that point, the real people who should take Nigeria out of the doldrums will take over from them. So whatever they are doing, I think they must understand that this empire one day will fail.
Well, the list is actually long. I mean, from every state, the Guardian has been able to compile instances where you have either wife of a senator, children of a senator. You have, for instance, in Yobe State, former Governor Bakar Ibrahim went to the Senate. His wife is in the House of Reps. You have
family affair.
That's family affair. You have Benny Bukmar Lar, is the daughter of late Solomon Lar, who was the former governor of Plateau State. And now she's representing Langtang North, Langtang South, for a 5th term in 2023. You also have Ireti Kingibe, who's
from Abuja,
in Abuja, currently serving and is married to former SGF Babagana Kingibe. She's also the younger sister of Ajoke Mohammed, wife of the late former head of state, General Murtala Mohammed. You also have, we also have, there's also Olamiju Akala, who is representing Ogbomoso North, South, Orire,
that's your state.
Yes, son of former Governor Alao Akala. You also have, it's a very long list. You have in Delta State, you have Marilyn Okowa Damilola, daughter of immediate past Governor Ifeanyi Okowa. She's a member of the State House of Assembly. You also have Ondo State Governor Rotimi Akeredolu appointed his son, Babajide, as the DG of Performance and Project Implementation Monitoring Unit.
They say the guy is the de facto governor in Ondo State, so that's what we hear.
Yeah, that's in grapevine. We've been hearing that a lot, actually, as a matter of fact. Osun State Governor, in recent times, we had that conversation as well. Ademola Adeleke appointed Mrs. Adeleke, who is the second wife of the first governor of the state. I think that's their brother now, Isiaka Adeleke.
Yeah, Isiaka Adeleke, Serubawon.
Their elder brother. So that is the wife.
Serubawon, the governor.
The second wife. The second wife is now a commissioner. So that's
very good.
That's interesting.
The family thing.
Tunji Adeleke is now chairman of the Local Government Service Commission. That's his son. You also have in Enugu State.
Is it the musician? I don't know.
No, not that.
But one of his sons, now the commissioner.
He's now a commissioner. He's a chairman. So you also have Enugu State, where you have the son of former governor of Enugu State, Chimaroke Namani. The son of former minister Chief Dubem Oyear, the son of former attorney general of Enugu State. The three of them, the sons of these three people, are serving in the administration or were serving in the administration of Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi when he was governor of Enugu State. So it's a long list if you actually look
let's
at
just leave it. Let people go and check the list themselves. Yeah.
Exactly. The story is on pages 4 and 5, and you have here that this is not a democracy. It's now a distorted system. It tells you how primitive, self-seeking, and selfish our politicians have become. It shows that yes,
in the midst of that, Sandra, poverty well entrenched.
Yeah,
the living standards of people is not improving. Just go on. Please go on.
It says here that it shows that all they work and strive for is not for the betterment of the country, but for their selfish interest and personal and aggrandizement. I am sure that Nigerians have come to realize that on a daily basis, our democracy, rather than making progress, is deteriorating in values and substance. So here we are. What you have, the interesting thing from this report that I was able to get is the fact that it's not just only biological sons now or biological relations. You also have political,
friends and cronies.
Yes. You have maybe a political son, someone, that has been with you all your political life, and say, okay, let's reward this person. A lot of people have said the ministerial
position.
Yeah, that the ministerial nominee list is more like a reward system. Oh, thank you very
much. Political compensation.
For helping me through the election. So,
fine.
Someone was highlighting recently, Fuhad, the fact that, the Northwest, yes, I got that.
10 positions.
Yes. Northwest alone. That's actually interesting. And I held on to that actually. The Northwest region is fully packed. The Speaker of the House of Reps, the Deputy Senate President, the National Chairman of the party, and now 10
ministerial nominees.
10 ministerial nominees.
Let me tell you why, Sandra. Let me tell you why, Sandra. The Northwest has 7 states, and you see, you must understand that politicians, after an election, are already thinking of the next election. I want you to understand that the average politician in Nigeria, when one election is concluded, they are already planning and thinking of the next election. In the calculations of our politicians, whatever you have seen, especially as far as these ministerial nominees are concerned, it's also geared towards 2027. There are political calculations to it. And that is why you see that, look, the spread in terms of nominees, yes, every state is well represented, but if you look at it region by region, you will see that, look, the regions are represented based on political calculations. That's why the Northwest has 10 nominees already, as we speak. So for our politicians, we may be continuing to talk about now the issues of today. They are already seeing beyond today. They are already looking towards 2027 and already planning. And that's why you see the positioning and all of that is all geared towards the next election. That's the way we think. And I told someone yesterday, Sandra, that look, the reality is that in 4 years, in a 4-year term of a president or a governor in Nigeria, governance is only done within 2 years. The remaining 2 years is for politicking and campaign. So whatever President Ajibola wants to achieve now can only be done within 2 years. You know that the last 2 years of any government is always more about campaign, what's going to happen, and all of that. So they're already looking at 2027, Sandra, and that's the calculation you'll see.
All right, thank you very much. But just before we move on from this story, I see here that this is how democracy dies, and that's a situation, a problem it's becoming a serious problem in the West Africa, region.
Sub-region, yeah.
Yes, where you now have, coups happening, people are taking over due to the fact that democracy is now being used and abused by those in positions of political authority, and it is giving birth to all of these situations. Do you agree with that, or is it just some people just with selfish interests just want to take over and do something for themselves?
Well, it's a two-way thing, Sandra. The khaki boys would not go against a very popular government. I always say coup plots happen when the government becomes extremely unpopular. When the government becomes extremely unpopular. Look, for example, in Turkey, there was a time a coup attempt was made, against the government of Tayyip Erdogan, the president. And the people rose against the military junta and drove back to the barracks. Right there in Turkey. If you understand what I'm saying.
Hello? All right, thank you. Fuad, I'm unable to hear you. I may have to reconnect with you, but please stand by. This is still Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM, and we're looking through the Guardian newspaper. The major headline says, Nigeria's political dynasties wax stronger as poverty deepens. Looking at the fact that there seems to be some sort of nepotism or favoritism, however it is that you want to put it, happening in our political space, where you have strong politicians holding, just paving the way for their children or their family members to hold political positions in the country. Let's move on now. I have here contempt charge. NLC threatens strike if summons is not withdrawn. And that is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. And I have here that it says that the NLC, after striking a mutual understanding with the president that aborted the nationwide protest on day 2, has threatened to go on what they termed nationwide comprehensive strike from August 14th if the federal government fails to withdraw the court case it instituted against it. Fuad?
You know what, Sandra? You can't be talking and negotiating with me. And, on the sidelines, you are setting up booby traps for me. You have called me for negotiations. You are saying, we can always talk, And then while we are doing that, that was what happened yesterday. On Wednesday, during the protest. The president was meeting with them, with labor leaders. And the people in the Ministry of Justice, representing the government, were in court, filing charges of contempt of court against the labor leaders. So you ask yourself, so when we talk about trust deficit between the government and the people, this exactly is what we are talking about. How can you be negotiating with me and you are in court filing charges against me? If you understand what I'm saying, and that's why I think the labor leaders, I said it even before the Wednesday protest, that look, the labor leaders need to put on their thinking cap. They need to come up with a better strategy to handle all of the things the government will throw at them. One of the things the government will do is to use, the court system to want to stifle them out of their strategy. Let me tell you, people are always saying, what else can the labor leaders do? The reality is that the biggest weapon of any of the labor in the world is strike, drowning of tools. Go and check anywhere in the world. That is their biggest weapon against the government. When they down tools, the government will listen to them. In the US, we see people doing it. In the UK, we have nurses going on strike. It has to force the government to talk to them. So they need to understand that, look, the government will do this. They already have it. Look, it happened during us, and we saw what ended it. So I think the labor leaders need to sit down, understand that, look, the government will use this against them. They somehow have gotten that idea that, look, they can always go to God, get ex parte order, to make it illegal for these leaders to go on strike. Okay, if labor leaders cannot go on strike, what then is the other option for them? I keep asking people who blame labor leaders for going on strike. What is the other option? When the labor leaders speak to government, sign an agreement, make an agreement with them, sign MOU, and the government reneges on those agreements, what other options do you want them to take? What is the other option apart from strike? Are they supposed to be roaming down the street or keep quiet and silent, doing nothing about their plight and the plight of their members? So again, it's not for me. I would, as a journalist, even though I was once an activist, I will continue to say it again. There's a strategy the labor can adopt to beat the government at their game, especially when it comes to going to court to get some of these funny injunctions. But I'm saying that is the job of the labor leader, to sit down with people that will tell them the right thing to do. It's not wrong for me to continue to tell them there are a lot that they can do about all of these court cases that the government goes to court. The reality is that there's no other option for labor. When every negotiation fails, when the government fails, look, Sandra, let me tell you this. You are already negotiating with these people. Let us even assume that the labor leaders are not unreasonable in their demands. Let us assume that, the government wants to let Nigerians know that, hey, we've given things to labor, we have plans and all of that, but these labor leaders are just unreasonable with us. Let me ask you a question, Sandra. What has the government put forward for labor now? What have they put on the table for labor that you know about?
Well,
because it would have been easy for the government to say, You guys are demanding for 200,000 minimum wage. We don't have 200,000. We are giving you 100,000 minimum wage. Can we have what the government is offering labor? And we can begin to judge whether labor is reasonable or unreasonable. You have not done that. You are running to court. Then you are tinkering with policies and ideas. Implementation is not even clear to the government. It sounds very confused. You have knee-jerk approach, scratching of surfaces, and then you want labor to sit back and do nothing. What exactly are we talking about here? And I always think, Sandra, no democracy will survive. No democracy in the world will survive if you destabilize organized labor. Organized labor and civil society, if you don't allow them to function, then we don't have a democracy.
Well, when they had a conversation, when TUC and NLC went to meet the president, when asked what exactly happened or what was, the conversation with the president, according to the TUC chairman, he said that they've decided to give the government some benefit of doubt because they kept repeating we are a new government, we promise, and when we promise we must act. So they said, okay, let's give them a benefit of doubt. However, when asked about the next line of action, if in the next 7 days as promised by the government there is no positive feedback, Osifo said, as unions, we don't just sit down and define these lines of action because we have organs. So this information that the president has given us, we're going to call out our meetings and we'll also do the reviews. Then after those reviews, we'll wait and watch. When nothing is being done, trust that the two labor centers will also meet to take a stand to push the government to act. However, NLC has threatened that they will go on strike by August 14 if the federal government does not pull off its injunction, court order, or case in court.
There's an industrial court order, ex parte order, that any court action is illegal until the court hears their matter. And I don't know whether the labor unions have vacated that order. It's still subsisting, and it's on that same order that the government has gone to court on contempt of court against these labor leaders. So I think they need to get some very sound lawyers to guide them, and also understand that there are things they can do that will compel the government to listen to them and yield to their demands, despite the government running to court. But I will not tell them that strategy. Very simple strategy, Sandra.
Well, I would like us to look at this as well. There's a Yoruba council that is telling Labour not to limit discussions to federal government alone, but also to hold state governors responsible. What do you think?
Of course, yes, it's going to be, but in Nigeria, the way government runs here, the federal government takes the lead. Whatever happens up there trickles down. Yeah, from top to bottom, that's the way we run it. So whatever happens there, the reality is that a lot of state governments will not be able to pay 200,000 minimum wage. I'm sure labor leaders at the state level will also have their own negotiations. But, it's just like, when ministerial list was announced, it took, the announcement of ministerial list at the federal level before states now started announcing their own commissioners list too. The same thing with palliative. So you see governors waiting for the federal government to do something before they act. You understand what I'm saying? So it's going to be a complete package. Everybody would have to negotiate at different levels. Even local government will also have to negotiate with their chairman, local government workers, and all of that. But what I'm saying is that, look, most of these states will be expecting to see what happens at the federal level, and then they can now negotiate with their labor leaders at the state level.
All right, now let's move on to this also important story on the front page of The Guardian. We have here Forex challenges, high OPEX force GSK's exit from Nigeria. And what we have here is that GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Nigeria PLC, formerly SmithKline Beecham, has pulled out all its operations from Nigeria. And the factors that led to this decision includes foreign exchange availability for businesses, insecurity, unemployment, high cost of doing business, coupled with the uncertainty around fuel subsidy removal. And there you have it, Fuhad. The challenges ahead are quite significant, but then what do you think this will mean for potential investors and even the economy itself? Because GSK has about two factories
Sandra,
that provide jobs to thousands of people. Yes, I'm with you.
For sake of emphasis, I want you to read out the things that has led this company to close shop and leave the country. I want you to just read it out again.
Well, The factors include foreign exchange availability for businesses,
Number one.
insecurity,
Number two.
unemployment,
Number three.
high cost of doing business, and
Number four.
coupled with the uncertainty around fuel subsidy removal.
Number five.
Yes.
Now, when the president announced that they were going to be funding businesses with 1 billion, about 75 businesses, they were going to be giving 500,000 naira to 500,000 to 1 million to some other 100,000 businesses. I said something. I said, look, if you ask the average business owner in Nigeria, they will tell you that financing is not their problem.
The environment.
But a conducive environment for their business to thrive. They will tell you, I'm telling you, speak with an average business owner in Nigeria. They will tell you that, look, capital is not their problem. They can always source funding. But what about the conducive environment for the business to thrive? Look, give 1 billion to 75 businesses for all I care. If the environment is not conducive, those businesses will collapse in 6 months. And so they need to pay attention. Insecurity issue, the forex problem is still there, unemployment. You understand? High cost of doing business, which will go into taxes and all manner of things, bottleneck, infrastructure is also a major problem. Insecurity is a major problem too. Uncertainty around our oil industry. Those are the things the government should also concentrate on. And the easiest, if you look at the problem with subsidy, is for us to fix our refineries. When companies understand that there can be stable supply, our policies cannot stop, because again, you may have another government come in another 4 years or 8 years now and reverse all of these policies. So the government needs to sit down and understand that, look, this knee-jerk approach, this cutting of surfaces will not resolve anything. Another big company is leaving Nigeria. A lot of them have left. God knows the next ones that will leave again.
Well, it's very unfortunate, if I might add, but it says here that as it is now, it's very challenging for them, especially with foreign exchange non-availability, and it's affecting their ability to settle foreign currency denominated trade payables with their product suppliers. However, they have said that they will brief their employees, whom they will try to treat fairly, respectfully, and with care, and meet all applicable legal and consultation requirements. Very unfortunate especially for they have distributors.
I know.
These are people.
Most of the employees are going to be on the unemployment market now.
Aside from the employees of GSK itself, the distributors of GSK, they are major distributors, they are partners in the country, and all of that. So very unfortunate. I mean, but then that is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. We also have here why average Nigerians can't afford new vehicles. I don't know how you expect the average Nigerians to afford new vehicles when it's going for 36 million.
Anyway, that buys a new vehicle that a big boy, he has to be a politician or somebody has political connection.
Let's show me their gun.
New car.
The brand new car. Fuhad, the conversation, happened on Twitter, and there's the conversation as regards the new cars that are going to be, purchased for our National Assembly leaders.
Guys.
Yes. So, and they looked at how much one brand new car costs. That's almost 40-something million. So imagine how much. Yes.
Someone was showing me the cost of new cars recently.
Yes.
And I was seeing something of 70 million, 90 million, the SUV, the big SUV.
The list there, Fuhad, on that list, because I saw that list. The list there is 36 million.
36 million.
And that's a Toyota
and
Camry.
It's a Toyota Camry, you see. So the SUVs are like 70, 90, 100 million at this time.
Well, we're just going to buy Marwa and just be okay.
Just look at Tokumbo. That's why Nigerian used cars are selling now. And they are very expensive. Nigerian used cars, people are buying it seriously because that's the option for people now. Even Tokumbo cars are extremely expensive. The Tokumbo cars are very, very expensive now. So what you see is that people are buying, people who are able to maintain and use their cars properly, Nigerian used people just buy them. Because that's the only affordable option for a lot of Nigerians now.
All right, let's move on now. That story is on page 15 of the Guardian newspaper, why average Nigerians can't afford new vehicles. Let's move on now to The Punch. You're listening to Trends in the Papers on mainland 98.3 FM. We're looking through major trending stories And now the major headline on the front page of the Punch, hashtag subsidy protest. Federal government, Labour talks collapse. NLC begins strike August 14th. And the writer says why Labour made a U-turn on agreements reached with Tinubu on subsidy removal. MAN, LCCI demand more palliatives from federal government. NLC gives reasons for ending protests. That story is on page 2. Very, very quickly, barely 24 hours after meeting with President Bola Tinubu, where an agreement was reached to call off their protest, the reapproachment between the organized labor and the federal government appeared to have collapsed as the unions on Thursday night vowed to embark on a nationwide strike from August 14th if their leaders were summoned for contempt of court orders. We've had a conversation around this already. However, just to look at trying to look at the request from MAN and LCCI.
For more palliative.
Yes, for more palliatives. That's the one that I would like us to look at as regards this report from the Punch newspaper. And the story is on page 22 of the Punch.
Well, I think the chairman of MAN, I was listening to him, where he talked about the fact that, well, he would assume that whatever the government is presenting for now, dwelling on the speech of the president was a start, that it really would not solve anything. But they hope that, well, that was the beginning of the things that will come as support for the manufacturing sector. Oh. I think he acknowledged the fact that, look, some businesses will benefit from some of these loans at single-digit interest. 75 billion, for example, for 75 companies at 1 billion naira each, 9% interest rate. But what he's saying is that, look, the challenges in the manufacturing sector is far, far bigger than just throwing money into the sector. The forex issues are still there, the issue of insecurity. I think recently Manufacturing Association of Nigeria has said that, look, their cost of production has gone up because of forex. A lot of their raw materials are still likely imported into the country. So the government needs to look into that. I don't know whether government will still go back to the idea of having dollars at special rate for the manufacturing sector. I don't know whether that's part of the palliative they are demanding for, which will be extremely difficult because it now means we are going to be reversing to when we have two markets, $2 rate. So a lot that needs to be done. He talked about insecurity. He talked about even the tax regime, multiple taxation for businesses in the country and all of that. So a lot that the government needs to settle down to really think about and resolve all around this subsidy removal, honestly, Sandra.
All right, then. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry have called on the federal government to put in place more measures that will cushion the impact of the removal of subsidy. Now, in two separate statements made available, both the manufacturers and the Commerce Chamber commended the president for promising to roll out interventions. However, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria noted that the best palliative that the government could offer was to remove the binding constraints that has bedeviled the productive sector. He said this would engender job creation, payment of salaries, boost production capacity. This is far more beneficial than palliatives would only give nominal relief.
I don't like the word palliative. Now I keep telling you, it doesn't solve any problem.
Well, additionally, we expect other attendant challenges, including the calculation of import duty for production, inputs at the floated rate, and the continued denomination of the gas price in dollars should be discontinued. This will help to bring down rising costs of production. It will also help to avert an unprecedented upward swing in the price of domestic products. However, on the side of the LCCI, they expressed support for the move to invest in the manufacturing sector, and they noted that it would be pertinent to consider more enterprises, as 75 would not significantly impact the economy. Remember the 75 billion, 1 billion per enterprise, per business person. The LCCI is encouraging or suggesting that they look at more advising that they look at more enterprises as against the 75 enterprises and they also there's a lot of commendation. All right, that's the story. More details on pages 2 and 22 of the Punch newspaper. Now, Fuhad, I'd like us to look at this story just above the masthead of the Punch. Federal government begins no work, no pay for striking doctors. What is that the way out? Why is the federal government, why does it seem that the federal government, tries to always find the easy, petty way out?
I don't know whether to call it petty or to call it an unfortunate, strategy. Very unfortunate, very sad, strategy from. Because again, we seem to be seeing the same pattern that we saw from the Buhari government.
Yes.
And one would think that this government will take a different path. Because the resident, look, one of the reasons, again, given for why the doctor at the general hospital could have died was that maybe some doctors were not even on duty to quickly attend to her. Apart from the fact that facilities were not really working, there was issue of blood and all of that. And resident doctors being on strike, and you are starting to know what are we now heading towards, for example, 6-7 months of doctors being on strike? So what is going to? And the reality is that most of these bourgeoisies, our political class, the elitist class, they have a way of sorting themselves out. They don't use most of these public hospitals. They have private doctors. A lot of them, if they have cold and kata, they will fly out of the country to go and sort themselves out. So I'm sure they don't really care. Because if actually they care about the people, I'm sure this will not be the strategy they're going to. It will be. And if you look at what the resident doctors are saying, Sandra, what they have said is that they have about 10 demands. Just resolve 2 out of the 10. And then we can begin to talk and negotiate others out of their demand. They are talking majorly about, I think, 2, which concerns, I think, some of the outstanding payments as resident doctors, and then shifts, and then I think more about employing more doctors and all of that. They said just to attempt to 2 out of the numerous, and then we'll go back to work and we can begin to talk about others. But for us to now have the same old strategy that we saw during the ASU strike of no work, no pay coming up again, so it means that this government does not want to change from what we saw in the past that failed completely. So the reality is that they don't care. That's what I see. That's my own submission. Because if indeed they care, they understand what it means for doctors to be on strike. Sandra, go to the public hospitals and see what will be going on now. You see people who are already booked for surgery, waiting, and are getting abandoned. I'm sure the ICUs are going to be filled up now. What of your pediatric hospitals as we speak? Children in the incubator who need pediatricians to attend to them. Emergency situations, who's going to take care of all those things? Our elitist class on a daily basis keep showing us, our political class on a daily basis keep showing us that they don't really care. Because they can always sort themselves out. They have the best physicians to attend to them. The best private hospitals in Nigeria are available to attend to them. And when they have visas, they can always fly out, to use the best hospitals in the world to take care of themselves. It's unfortunate, Sandra.
It is very unfortunate. Just some months ago, we were having a conversation as regards, the brain drain in the health sector and why our doctors are trooping out of the country. As it is, I can't even begin to imagine. People are trying to press some demands for something good, not just for themselves, but even for the health sector in general. And here we are now. We are looking at the federal government directing chief medical directors and medical directors in federal teaching hospitals to implement the no work, no pay policy. They even went further to say that they should have attendance sheet. So people that come to work, they should write their names so that they'll be the ones. They will be the only ones to be paid. Well, that's what I can say.
I'm sure the resident doctors and the union leaders know what to do when things like this come up. Again, I keep saying it. This is the era. When you see a government that has a particular pattern of behavior, as union leaders, you must also devise your strategy. I'm sorry, I keep remembering the days of unionism. When you see a government that, look, anytime you go into negotiations with them or something comes up on the table, and what they do instead of, opening up for proper negotiation, they try to stifle you, whether through the arms of the law or this kind of strategy of no work, no pay. Union leaders need to sit down and understand how to deal with things like this. What they probably need to do is to go and look at what happened in the past when there were real serious union leaders who know how to deal with government when they come up with strategies like this. Again, as a journalist, it's not my job to tell them what to do.
Well, more details on page 7. Moving on now, we also have here new public service rules may force out 512 directors. So, about 512 directors in the civil service who have spent 8 years on the Directorate cadre may be forced out of the service sequel to the implementation of the newly revised Public Service Rules 2021 by the federal government. The new rules also introduced a tenure policy for permanent secretaries who are now required to spend 4 years in office, which is renewable, subject to performance. And we also have here sources in the Federal Civil Service confirmed that the new rule will affect as many as 512 who have stagnated on their position for 8 years or more. It's a long read. You can get more details on page.
I think that one will interest the guys in the public sector, the civil servants.
Yes. All right. We also have here NNPCL, NIPCO begin deployment of auto gas stations. And that is on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. So just very quickly, what we have is that the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited announced its partnership with NIPCO Gas Limited for the development and deployment of compressed natural gas stations across the country. Popularly called auto gas, CNG is another form of fuel that could also be used in automobiles. And the push for its adoption had been high since the removal of subsidy. So Fuhad.
Would they help people to convert their vehicles to auto gas?
I knew you were
Yes,
going there. It's okay.
No, now. For example, I think the last time we reviewed it almost a year ago, it was going to cost almost like 400,000 to convert a vehicle, an average vehicle, to auto gas. And I'm sure we forest everything like where we like over 500,000 naira. So what happens? Are they going to be paying people? That is part of subsidy to say, okay, we bring your vehicle, we help you to convert it. What are they going to do? How many Nigerians have up to 500,000 now to convert their vehicles to auto gas? If you think the electric cars that will benefit from this, if anything is going to happen in that area. And then for how long will all of these things happen? How many filling stations would they convert? At what cost? Who's going to bear the cost? Again, I still think we are just scratching the surface. We are really not addressing the real issues, which is to fix our refinery standard.
All right. Well, more details on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. Still on trends in the papers. Let's quickly run through the front page of the Nation newspaper. And I have here as the major headline on the front page of the Nation, Ganduje pledges reform, fairness to reposition APC. And the writer says, former governor, Senator Basiru stepping. Tinubu, let's fulfill our promises. And we also have NWR gets Fiat to fill 6 vacant posts. So the APC National Chairman Abdullahi Ganduje yesterday promised to reposition the platform for growth and victory in future polls. Also endorsed as the secretary is Senator Sirajuddin Ajibola Bashiru. And Bashiru, that's that. And stories on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Let's move on now. We don't have so much time. We also have here on the front page of the Nation, Tinubu sends Abdul Salami Sultan to warn Niger junta. King Gigbe on diplomatic shuttle to Algeria and Libya. That is on page 5 of the Nation. I also have here, NSA probes another vessel held with stolen crude. And that is on page 4. And what's interesting about this particular story is that there are indications that there was a military boat that was actually escorting this particular ship. A suspected military boat was escorting a vessel with stolen crude. I hope that there will be more information on that. But what we have, findings have confirmed that the conflicting status of the vessel raised suspicion of stolen crude. So is it stolen? Is the vessel an official vessel? Why is there a military boat escorting it? So many, questions. The Tantita operatives were conducting a routine patrol when they spotted the vessel. The vessel was loaded with crude oil suspected to be stolen. The vessel, Mount Prazel, was allegedly being escorted by a Navy boat. However, the Tantita operatives stood their ground. With the backing of the NSA and the Chief of Naval Staff, the private security firm has taken the suspicious vessel into custody. It's okay. That story is on page 3 of it's on page 3 of page 4. Apologies. Page 4 of the Nation newspaper, and it is reported to be of 1,117 tons. All right, that is what we can take from the Nation. Finally, now let's look through Vanguard newspaper, and then we have the major headline: contempt charge will go on indefinite strike August 14th if, and that's coming from NLC. And the writer says, gives August 11 deadline for withdrawal of summons, will face Nigeria's challenges squarely, says President Bola Tinubu. And the story is on pages 5 and 43 of Vanguard newspaper. Now we also have here, ECOWAS delegation meets with Niger's military junta. So, Fuad, you were not there when we were reading the Nation paper. Former head of state, General Salami, has been sent to...
Abubakar, yeah.
Yes, Abubakar.
I think it's Sultan too.
Sultan of Sokoto, yes, Alhaji Saad Abubakar, on behalf of the sub-region, met with the junta leader in Niamey after taking briefing. Also, we have another delegation led by Ambassador Babagana Kingibe, with a mission to persuade leaders of Libya and Algeria to lend their support to the pressure on the military usurpers. So that's the update as regards the ECOWAS and Niger. Now we also have here on the front page of Vanguard newspaper, APC, how Ganduje emerged 6th national chair, Bashiru secretary. You know, on this particular story, please permit me to go back to the Punch newspaper, where I have a headline here that says PDP, Labour Party mock APC as NEC ratifies Ganduje party chair.
Why are they mocking them?
You know, that's why I said...
Because they have the corruption case hanging around him. What's the mockery about? They have their own issues to deal with, though. Besides that PDP.
Well?
They have their own bigger issues to deal with. And, you know, instead of mocking it, I think they should sit down and see how they can restructure their party and put it on a better footing as an opposition party. You know? And I'm sure even the Labour Party has their own issues too. Their Papa issue is not going anytime soon. And all of that. You know, I don't know where the mockery is coming from. I think to a great extent the APC, you know, somehow has been able to sort out a lot of the issues that we thought was going to become a crisis as far as leadership of the party is concerned. You know, for you to have the chairman of the party and the secretary step down in that manner, you know, to pave way for a new set of leadership, it shows you that in terms of political strategy at resolving party issues, the APC is far, far ahead of the PDP and the Labour Party. As we speak now, what is the situation of the PDP in terms of leadership? Just recently it was announced that they have constituted a committee for campaigns in Bayelsa, the Bayelsa elections. And shockingly, the G5 governors have their names on it. Wike is still there. They don't know what to do with him. Seyi Makinde is still a member of the PDP. Obnobbing with the APC and the president, they don't know what to do with him.
You know, Seyi Makinde went with the president to, was it Paris now?
I was seeing his pictures with the Labour leaders, you know. So what are we talking about here? You know, and why we keep talking about the PDP and the Labour Party is that, look, again, everything about democracy is threatened without a vibrant opposition. So I think they need to really sit back. The leaders of the party need to call themselves together for the sake of democracy and, you know, to find a way to resolve their issues and bring some vibrance to opposition politics in Nigeria.
All right. Thank you very much, Saheed Fuhad. That is all we can take this morning on trends in the papers. Those are the major trending stories across the papers this morning. All right, we'll take a short break now, and then we'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus, where you get to be a part of the conversation and, you know, share your thoughts and contribution as regards the focal point we'll be looking at today. Also very important to announce, by 4 p.m. in the Situation Room today, we'll be having a presidential candidate of the Africa Democratic Congress, Comrade Africa Action. Thank you. Africa Action Congress. Comrade Omoyele Showore will be joining Okwemi Akiyonde in the Situation Room. So that's one thing that, you know, we should all look forward to. I think on Political Roundtable we'll also be having a huge guest. That's on Sunday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So there's a lot to look forward to. However, stay tuned for Milan Focus coming up by 8:40. This is still Milan 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.